This is a meeting of the General Policy Committee of the Gainesville City Commission on September 24th, 2020. And before we adopt our agenda today, we actually have a special tribute and presentation. One of our longest tenured city employees is retiring very soon, and the city manager requested an opportunity to honor him, recognize him, and allow anybody to share anything if they wanted to. So we'll do that before our agenda is adopted. Mr. Feldman?
So thank you, Mayor. Commissioners, as you know and talked a little bit about at your meeting on the 17th, our longtime fire chief, Jeff Lane, is retiring as of September 30th. And I asked, so normally in the fire rescue department tradition, there's a farewell and sometimes a dinner of appreciation, which we have not been able to do with Chief Lane. So I asked our staff to put together a little bit of presentation on the history of Jeff Lane and give you all a chance to thank him again publicly for the great job that he has done. You know, Gainesville Fire Rescue has been a department that many departments around the state and even the country seek to emulate, especially when it does progressive things like the community paramedicine program, its ability to strategically position itself and train to provide that fire suppression service, and probably equally as important, if not more important, to be the first responders in situations of medical need, as well as other community needs. So I would just ask that you all just give us a few minutes to give a little tribute to the chief. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to soon to be interim fire chief Joanne Rice. So Chief Rice.
Sure, good afternoon. So we've got a video that communications put together for us. It's got a video tribute to him, which is very nice. And then I'd like to say a few words afterwards. Chief Lane was going to get on the line, but I thought this was going to be at the end. So I'm hoping that he and his wife are able to get on. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Can you see that?
Yeah.
All right, well, then I'm going to get this one started. And if you don't mind, if you'll indulge me just for one more moment, or actually for, shall I say, 2 more minutes, I'd like to give a tribute to him myself, if that's all right.
Of course, please.
So after 30 years of dedicated services to the citizens of Gainesville, GFR, and the city, Chief Lane will retire next Wednesday, September 30th. Chief Lane and I began our career with the city at the same time, starting as firefighters in 1990. While we both took very different paths, we kept ending up together, first as district chiefs of B Shift for 6 years, and then as deputy chief and fire chief for almost 6 years. Chief Lane promoted through all the ranks, serving in every role in the department before being named fire chief in 2015. A primary role Chief Lane served for many years was as the union president from 1998 to 2013. Coming up through the ranks, he was instrumental in establishing and leading the GFR Honor Guard team for many years, and you can still find pictures of him in the back of our rules and regulations with his uniform on and his all the badges and showing us how to wear that. As a district chief, he oversaw all of our radio operations and helped to select and implement our current fire station alerting system, Purvis, and the TriTech CAD system. Later as chief, he became an integral member of the Trunked Radio System Management Board. Throughout his career, Chief Lane has been recognized and honored as a leader. In 2008, he was chosen as the Chief Officer of the Year. In 2011, he received the Donald J. King Mentorship Award and has had several other unit citations as well as service appreciation awards. As a graduate of the University of Florida and the Emergency Services Bachelor's Degree Program, Chief Lane was an advocate for higher education. He served on the Santa Fe Emergency Medical Services and Adult Education Program Advisory Committees, as well as the UF Fire and Emergency Services Advisory Committee after he graduated. As fire chief, Chief Lane was instrumental in overseeing GFR's reaccreditation and reaffirming our ISO Class 2 rating in 2019. And he worked to implement the new automatic aid agreement with Alachua County Fire Rescue in 2018, which gave us some additional response capacity. During his tenure as chief, we were able to finalize and build new Station 1, add Station 9, replace almost every frontline apparatus, add new ladder truck 9, add 25 new employees. And as of October 1, with the addition of the 2 new CRP techs that you will approve this evening, our workforce will grow to 200 full-time employees. Chief Lane is leaving us in a really good place, and I'm excited to take over as the interim fire chief next month and begin to build on the achievement of the past 5 years. Thank you, Chief Lane, for your 30 years of dedicated service. Enjoy your retirement. You deserve it. And with that, I will turn it back over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chief Rice. And I did not know that y'all came in together and had worked together that long. So I just learned something, and it gives me a lot of comfort as well.
There were some young pictures in there of us.
And I had a feeling that mustache was going to make the journey all the way through, and it definitely did.
It got a lot grayer over the years.
Yeah, and I see he tried to tweak it there a few times from time to time, but he stuck with it, and it's good to have that sort of comfort in a chief, right? The chief, we all shared our thanks with him at our meeting last week, and I hope he's gotten a chance to see that. If not, we'll make it available to him. But really want to thank his family as well. It's such a demanding job, especially when you reach that level, and with all the emergencies that we've had. From hurricanes to white supremacists, and then just the regular duties of a fire chief. It takes you away from family a lot. And I was lucky enough to teach his son. I also have a connection to some of the grandkids, and I know that there were times when he was with us and left his family to weather these emergencies and storm events themselves, and that's just so hard. And so to his entire family, to his wife, thank you so much for sharing him with us and supporting him so he could support us. It's made the world of difference to our community.
Well, absolutely. Well, you saw in the videos, so many times they were both here working together because Leslie worked here as a firefighter for 16 years.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Chief Rice, and we are over the moon about your appointment and have complete confidence in you as our interim chief. I believe, and I said I was pretty sure, but you will be the first woman to be the chief of the Gainesville Fire Department, correct?
Yes, I've hit a few of those milestones along the way. Yes, sir.
We're proud of you and have complete confidence in your ability to keep our amazing department moving forward.
Thank you very much. I look forward to the opportunity.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that with us. And Chief, thank you so much. Anything I can do for you, anything the rest of us can do for you in your retirement, please let us know. But hopefully you just take a step back and relax and soak up some of that well-earned retirement relaxation. All right, Commission, let's go ahead and move to adoption of our agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Johnson, seconded by Commissioner Simmons. Kyle, anybody about adoption of the agenda?
We do have a caller who would like to comment on this issue. I'm going to unmute Nathan Scott for comment. Nathan, you're good to proceed.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Poe, Commissioners, Nathan Scott. So with respect to the agenda, the Commission's already juggled it. The recognition was an agenda item, but you guys moved it to the front of the meeting. So I want to commend Chief Lane for his dedicated years of service to the Gainesville Fire Department. Also, I think it's egregious that this commission it's got time for so many other things, but the fact that you have an interim chief that would be the first woman that was fire chief of the Gainesville Fire Department in interim capacity and haven't made that position permanent based upon the pending retirement just illustrates your lack of attention to the orderly transition and succession planning in city government. And, this whole interim thing is kind of distasteful, particularly when you do in advance of the pending retirement. But you guys have time to talk and virtue signal and make lengthy speeches about so many other things that have nothing to do with the day-to-day operations of the city of Gainesville. So with respect to the adoption of the regular agenda, I would ask this commission to modify the agenda to include general public comment. You guys talked about that at the last meeting and you hem and hawed and made it seem like it's going to take a month or two for you guys to get your act together, but nothing prevents you from adding items to the agenda. Certainly you claim that you want to hear from the public, so this is the opportunity to do so. There's many people that would like to engage with the city commission and express views for items not on the agenda all the time. You guys added back commission comments so you guys can pontificate and virtue signal and make lengthy speeches on anything near and dear to your heart, but you didn't at the same time move to reinstate general public comment. So here's your opportunity, Mayor Poe, to demonstrate some leadership, to practice what you preach and allow the general public to be heard on items not on the agenda. So I'd ask the city commission to consider that thought and affirmatively amend the agenda to add general public comments at some point during the meeting at your own election. It could be the end of the meeting, it could be the beginning of the meeting, what have you, but certainly it's within your powers to amend your own rules. Certainly it's within your powers to modify the agenda, and that's the request. Thank you.
We have no other callers discussing the agenda adoption.
Okay, thank you. As Mr. Scott is aware, the commission authorized the attorney to draft the resolution to amend our rules to allow for general public comment. We take up resolutions at our regular city commission meetings, not at general policy committee meetings. We take them up in the evening and we'll be addressing that resolution at our next meeting, which will be October 15th in the evening portion. As far as Chief Lane, first of all, the commission does not hire the police chief. And second of all, whenever any major position opens up, there is a broad national search to fill that position. It takes time. And for nearly every one of those senior level positions, there will be an interim in place while that search takes place, and we involve our community as well in that process. And so this is absolutely a standard operating procedure for not just us, but virtually every local government out there. We, again, have complete confidence in.
You have been muted.
our
To
interim
unmute
chief
yourself, press the
in the
star key
meantime.
twice.
Hi, is this Debbie Martinez on the line?
Thanks. Okay, let's go ahead and move to a vote. Motion is to adopt our agenda.
Commissioner Sacco, Commissioner Simmons,
Aye.
Commissioner Hayes Santos,
Aye.
Commissioner Ward,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Ariola,
No.
and Mayor Poe.
Aye, that motion passes 6-1 with Ariola in dissent. Up next, we have approval of the minutes from our September 10th meeting. Are there any additions, corrections, or is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Simmons, seconded by Commissioner Hayes Santos. Any members of the public wish to speak to the approval of the minutes?
No members of the public wish to speak to the minutes.
Thank you, Kyle. Madam Clerk, move to a vote.
Commissioner Ward,
Aye.
Commissioner Simmons,
Aye.
Commissioner Sacco,
Aye.
Commissioner Hayes Santos,
Aye.
Commissioner Ariola,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Poe.
Aye, that motion passes unanimously. Next item up is our first discussion item for the day, which is an update on the community engagement toolkit. Who am I passing it to here? Mr. Feldman?
You're going to pass it to me, who will promptly pass it to our communications and engagement director, Shelby Taylor. So Shelby has worked on a presentation. I believe I have sent that to you. It's not published as part of your agenda. She will share her screen and walk through it with you.
All right, Ms. Taylor, welcome. And I see Ms. Wolf is with us as well. Good to see you both.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, I'm going to attempt to share my screen here. So let's hope this goes well. All right. Okay, so today you've asked us to kind of, Mayor and Commissioners, bring a update on our civic or community engagement toolkit. And so we thought it would really be a great opportunity for us not only to talk about the toolkit, but how we're using the toolkit as part of an overall community engagement strategy, how we're using it now, how we intend to use the principles of the toolkit moving forward. As you know, the community engagement position has been vacant in our office for a few months, and also the pandemic posed its own set of challenges. So the work did not stop, but it was a little bit postponed. But we're happy to report that Ann Wolf will be rejoining our team at the city, and we look forward to welcoming her back and kind of reactivate some of the good work that she started. And we look forward to kind of moving those very good efforts forward again. So I'm actually going to take an opportunity, if I might, to toss it over to Ann and let her say a few things if she would like to.
Yeah, hi everyone. I want to express, first of all, my gratitude for the time I was able to spend with Yvette Carter and her team and the Office of Inclusion at GRU, doing amazing work, and I look forward to seeing that come to fruition and supporting however I can. I'm also looking forward to returning to specific focus on community engagement work back in my engagement role. So I want to do a quick update of the timeline of things that have happened since we spoke and sort of where we're moving as we move to the future. So as you all know, last time we spoke, it was because of the toolkit, which was created in 2019 to offer some framework for engagement, realizing that it was not going to be possible for me to be here, there, and everywhere, and that we had departments throughout the city doing great engagement and in other charters as well, wanted to bring everyone together to figure out how we could pull from our extensive knowledge and experience and do some changes to support deeper engagement moving forward and to really implement that toolkit in ways that extend throughout the organization. The comprehensive plan is the first major project. We're using that project as a way to implement the toolkit and to go really deep into engagement on a project from start to finish. And so that toolkit was included in the RFP for the consultants that we're working with, and has been a guiding force behind how we're thinking about engagement both internally and with community members throughout the city ultimately. As you might imagine, it's been challenged a little by the pandemic, but we'll talk a little bit later in the presentation on some tools that we may be able to put to use for doing engagement even during the pandemic. And moving forward, we are going to be continuing with the Community Builders Working Group with a plan of starting that group back up in November, and working on some training. And I'm here, sorry for that. Working on some training that we can do with that group. Then moving forward, as we finish up the comprehensive plan, we're going to analyze how effective the toolkit was in that process, and take the best that it had to offer and use that as a model for moving forward. Reiterate the toolkit, rethink through what we're doing and what's effective and what needs to shift. And then we will keep moving forward. But the one thing I wanted to emphasize is that although the comp plan is one place where we're going to be creating a model for engagement, we're going to be able to have several projects in the coming year to be able to put this toolkit to use in real time. Shelby?
All right. So this next slide, what you see here is a lot of information, so I'm not going to go through it line by line, but as you know, as part of the strategic plan, each department has essentially been asked to report out on our action items. So what you see here, if you'd like to go through it, if you haven't already, are kind of some status updates, some project updates, and some identified needs. I'll let Ann talk a little bit more about the first three, but what I'd like to focus attention on now is fiscal year 21 funding for engagement. We've kind of been working together to identify potential budgetary needs that we think we'll need moving forward based on the toolkit, but also the Community Builders Working Group recommendations. Help in designing, delivering facilitator training for our community builders, perhaps even adding additional human resources, and not necessarily in our communications and engagement department, but having dedicated human resources in our forward-facing departments who will be needing to do action planning around engagement. And then also, we will discuss a little bit later this concept that we'd like to bring for your consideration, which is kind of called the community cultivators, which is something we'll get into a little bit, but funding would also ultimately be needed in fiscal year 21 for that. Ann, did you want to talk a little bit more about 1 through 3?
I guess with regard, I think the ask was that we come to the commission with a finalized engagement plan. Last time we spoke, a few of you mentioned that the engagement plan is going to have to be an iterative process, and I agree that it will have to be iterated and reiterated. So we don't have a final document. What you have is what we have. We're putting it to life, putting it to use with the comp plan, and thinking about how to move forward with some of our other plans, using that for engagement plans for those as well. In reestablishing the Community Builders Working Group, some of the things that, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, but some of the things that came up as needs across the organization, involve the sort of dedicated time for engagement, a person maybe that's dedicated to do that for some portion of their time, as well as some sort of action plan so that we can do engagement collaboratively, knowing in advance the types of engagement opportunities that there will be in the coming years, so that hopefully we can start having, if we're having events or if we're trying to interact with community members on several projects at a time, which we usually are, that we can better coordinate those efforts internally. So if Andrew Persons mentioned that he might have some things to say about this, just because we've been working on a lot of engagement. Andrew, are you available for that?
Yes, and I'm definitely not just chewing on something. Yes, yeah, I can kind of share my perspective as I think one of those forward-facing departments that thinks a lot about engagement and practices a lot of it. I think as Ann indicated, we're looking at the comp plan as a real opportunity to test out the toolkit, as well as like some of the other kind of ideas that have been discussed about in terms of reverse consulting or partnering with other community groups to kind of help enhance the type of outreach we do at the city. I don't know if this is like the best time to share sort of my perspective about the engagement action plans, or is that later on, do you think?
I think that's fine. And just the question is really, what would an action plan, in what ways would that be useful to you as someone who's running a forward-facing department?
Yeah, I mean, I would say one of the things I think that an action plan would help with would be actually sort of providing a template for staff who are maybe engaging on a smaller scale than the comp plan, but engaging around a singular issue. That an action plan can sort of lay out, these are the sort of the ways to do engagement over this issue, and help those departments that maybe don't have to do a lot of engagement regularly with sort of a framework to do it. I will say, I think we'll talk about it a little bit later, the pre-pandemic, we were working on something called the Neighborhood Planning Partnership that we had worked with Ann and Shelby at. And this was intended to be something where we're going to be going out into neighborhoods and talking about sort of capacity building and helping neighbors who are interested in knowing more about land development, zoning, some of these issues that can be very complicated, having a chance to go out and have that interaction and discuss, answer questions, bring back ideas. That's a great example of I think the type of engagement that we should be doing, but it is very much sort of like an add-on to what we're like our normal day-to-day things. And there is a chance when anything's not sort of intentional or identified sort of in, an operational plan or resource, like there's a good chance that, circumstances change and suddenly that sort of gets, that's a nice to do, not something that's like a critical sort of mission of the city. And I think that's where the action plans and then some of the resources we're talking about, I think, can really enhance what we're doing and standardize that across the organization.
Thank you, Andrew.
Ms. Taylor, if you would just pause. Commissioner Johnson, I saw your hand up and then you took it down, but did you want to jump in?
I did have a really quick question. Can you just remind me what the Community Builder Working Group is?
Sure, Annie, you want to take that?
Sure. Yes, of course. So we, after it was created after the last GPC meeting that I came to you all, came to the conclusion that in order to move this throughout the organization, we were going to need to pull a group of people together to do that. And so we ended up having, 12 different departments represented at a working group across 3 different charters. And we all came together to talk about sort of the past, present, and future of engagement, ways that we needed to work moving forward. We were able to meet a total of 3 times. That includes one time during the pandemic. And we were mostly just trying to sort of set the tone to establish some shared goals, both around the best of people's experiences with engagement, as well as around some of the ideas in the toolkit. How can we actually make these things actionable? What would we need in order to get there? So.
Thank you.
Hey, Shelby, back to you.
Okay, so I think one of the frustrations when Ann first came to our team was we hear this question a lot, well, don't we have an engagement person for that? And so we want to create some sort of shared understanding across the organization that engagement is a shared responsibility, and Ann's role is to help us facilitate that, but that we have to internally be building our capacity and see it as department by department and creating our own action plans, dedicating our own resources. And Andrew's department has been working closely with Anne and our office with the comprehensive plan. And that is a model really for how we envision this work moving forward. We also need to kind of externally through our external engagement strategy. And that's something we're going to be driving home throughout the presentation is really this is like this two-pronged thing, internal capacity building, but also external capacity building. And that oftentimes means investing time and resources and energy in helping people up to speed, particularly if everybody's not coming to the table with the same set of tools, providing our neighbors with the information and the tools and the resources they need to equitably participate. We'll talk a little bit more about the model we want to see moving forward with meetings, but the shared understanding that we need to move away from kind of transactional meetings to transformational meetings, that having more meetings doesn't necessarily mean more opportunities to participate. So oftentimes, I think we all agree that the same people show up, people who have the more flexibility, they're often empowered early and often. And so we really want to focus on providing opportunities for more people to participate, not just more opportunities in general, because having more meetings in the same way that we've been doing them can actually exacerbate the problem rather than help. And I think this public engagement spectrum, I think, is really important because I don't want to insinuate that we aren't doing anything, and we are, because we are doing a lot of stuff and we're doing a lot of things very well. And I think we are moving very good in a very positive direction on this public engagement spectrum, the wild spaces, public places, visioning workshops in the Duval neighborhood and what that community center is going to be for that area. The GCRA with their focus groups, bubble boards, instant polling, like we are in the discuss and debate area, moving quickly towards the engage and participate. Again, the neighborhood partnership program, which we'll talk about a little bit later, is absolutely an engage and participate model, but ultimately we want to be over in this kind of participatory space. And so that's where we're working. I think we land quite nicely between discuss, debate, and engage, participate, but we like to be tinkering on the lines between engage, participate, and sorry, you're on my other side of the screen, so I can't even see what it says. The partner collaborate model. Anne, did you want to chime in anything in particular here or just move along? You tell me.
Well, no, I think just, yeah, the biggest thing is really that this is the crux of the toolkit. And we are, keeping all of the great stuff that we've been doing to inform, educate, consult, discuss, and debate. But we are building internal capacity to more effectively do the engage, participate, partner, and collaborate. And we're also working to build community capacity and skills and knowledge to do the same sorts of things. We have tons of ideas that are, it seems, doable. Facilitation training, both for internal staff and then potentially also for youth. These are skills that we can use to improve the community while we also increase civic participation. So with this next slide, where do we want to be? We're familiar, I think, all of us with this sort of, and we're doing it now, in fact, the we present, you ask questions model. And we do want to get away from that, to the point where we are having more occasions for folks to just come and have the types of relationships with us and with community liaisons so that they can ask us anything, any questions they may have. And we can equip them, if need be, with the knowledge that they would need to participate equitably in our decision-making. Shelby. So, we sort of, we jumped ahead a little bit, but I'll move quickly through this. The Community Builders Working Group, we created with those 12 departments across 3 charters, a sort of what's working / effective engagement. And things, that came from that include, GFR, touch a truck outreach events, mobility outreach events with bike rodeos. Public Works has outreach events as well as more engagement-related educational programming like GRU's summer camp, GPD's youth programming, Parks and Rec identified some of their summer programming, Sustainable Development's neighborhood planning partnership. Strategic Initiatives has been doing great work on the Food Systems Coalition and the recent Civic Hackathon to try and build relationships and really bring people into some of our processes. But we also identified some goals and persistent challenges as well as next steps. And I think that's the next slide. So, what we need to move forward, and this is really not just the Community Builders Working Group, but to really move forward throughout the organization, we need to have some shared training so that we can have, we should all be sort of thinking in the direction of facilitation rather than presentation. And so that does require some specialized expertise. And then still, again, this question of, how does this fit into people's existing processes and existing staff time? And then, lastly, we need to be sort of calendaring together so that we are more able to collaboratively schedule engagement opportunities and to think through what the strategies are. Is a thing that I've heard many times from some of the members of the commission as well as members of the community, is that we have events that sometimes overlap. It can be confusing to community members to have 4 action plans and a comprehensive plan and a plan. How are these things fitting together is something that we're thinking about with this Community Builders Working Group, and we need to get there really in order to move that work forward, all of us together.
And if I could just chime in for a moment to tell you that in our office, we've been working to create a new face, a more accessible face for our community builders through an intranet portal called the Community Builders Hub, which will have the ability for our city departments to enter via form any activities and engagement events that they have cooking, and that would then self-populate on this internal calendar. So we're working towards a model where there's better access and shared resources available for our community builders, and one of those things being a much needed calendar across departments. Sorry, Anne.
Oh, that's fine. So, you've seen this about the planning partnership in the past. We now have curriculum, sort of a planning 101, that if folks have questions about planning, we have some fairly straightforward ways of answering questions that they may have. And I think this really is a fairly effective working model to create a space for neighbors to ask questions about planning, zoning, and development, and we could take that and use it elsewhere as well. But there are a couple things that, considerations that we've mentioned is that Andrew mentioned earlier, that an effort like this really needs dedicated staff time. And this concept that we'll be talking about soon about community liaisons, who are folks that are in the community that we can work with to get some of the more, especially the more complex concepts, translate those, work to design a clear way to understand how something complicated works, and working in partnership with people who we are actually paying to do that, who also then have connections into communities that we're having challenges reaching. And then lastly, it could be potentially helpful to have funding for local neighborhood groups. We know we've done this in the past to support advocacy and training at the neighborhood level. Andrew, is there anything you wanted to add to that? If not, we can just keep it moving.
No, I think that sums it up really nicely.
Okay, thanks.
So the community cultivator concept is one that is basically grounded in this idea that we need to integrate our engagement efforts into spaces that are natural, that's the most authentic way to engage and get authentic feedback from our neighbors, and that maybe the most effective approach is not and engagement professionals might not be city staff, but those who are working with city staff instead, but are individuals that are recognizable and well-known and trusted in their own communities. So we'd like to consider a model where we perhaps employ young people through internship programs to serve as community ambassadors, or, you know, pay recognized community members, leaders in individual neighborhoods to become subject matter experts and essentially play the liaison role, working closely with the city. And people, as you know, can't be kind of expected to become subject matter experts for free. So we really like this model. And in fact, the city manager currently has a research fellow in his office doing some investigation on a model that looks a whole lot like this, that's functioning quite well in Boulder, Colorado. So we look forward in the coming weeks to learn a little bit more about their experience with this. It has grown, so it started small and they're adding to it, not paring back. So we look forward to learning and gleaning from their experience and seeing how we might be able to replicate a similar type of model here in Gainesville. And then finally, to kind of just drive it home here, we've outlined a whole series of needs that we think will be essential if we want to kind of move this forward. Opportunities for us to engage and learn from one another in dedicated interdepartmental engagement events, facilitator training, particularly starting maybe small with our very forward-facing units, so that we move from the model of presenting to facilitating, dedicated departmental resources and action plans for how they can integrate and be forward thinking in their work as they plan ahead for engagement as part of their process, as we've seen working quite well in the Office of Sustainable Development. Considering a model where we use community liaisons to help play that role in our communities. They are where they become the subject matter experts. Investing in youth engagement and opportunities, and that could be through the Community Liaisons Project, at least at first. And then setting kind of a shared level of expectations and measures of success. Where is it that we really want to be, and what do we hope to accomplish through engagement? And so those are kind of a highlight of high-level needs that we see. And ultimately, again, to drive it home, that internal and external approaches to engagement are going to be essential to our success. We have to build the capacity internally, and that we also have to equip our neighbors with the tools and the resources that they need to equitably participate in the planning of our future moving forward. So, and if you have anything else to add, I think that's pretty much where we are, and happy to answer any questions if you have any.
All right, thank you, Ms. Taylor. Perhaps take your screen down so I can see everybody.
Will do. There we go.
Okay, thank you. I learned a lot. That's very helpful. I appreciate all three of you for sharing what you did and helping us kind of understand where we are and where we're trying to get. So with that, I'll turn to the commission. Commissioner Ariola.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for that presentation. I have to say that it looks as though we have the beginnings of a really great roadmap to get us to where we want to be. And I noticed that was sort of the driving question, which is where are we right now? Where do we want to get to? A bit of advice that I've sort of carried my whole life has been the hardest thing about starting anything new is unlearning what you already know. And when we talk about building internal capacity and building our community capacity, we're really talking about trying to unlearn some of the things that we have already taught our community or taught ourselves about how to engage. And how we can do that better and more effectively. So from my perspective, from at least my perspective as a commissioner, my questions really relate to, you know, what can the commission, how should the commission consider, you know, empowering our staff to build that internal capacity, because it looks as though there's a working group right now that's sort of assessing, I assume, and then making recommendations and finding sort of the right liaisons to build that capacity. And then community capacity, there's a lot of concepts in there that I would like a little bit more detail on. The community cultivator concept, you know, the sort of community ambassador concept. These are really, you know, in my view, these are really wonderful concepts, where I sort of, I guess the only questions in my mind are sort of what are the specifics and how do we sort of, how do we create a policy for these programs so that they're administered well and they're accessible to people, and not just, as you mentioned, the people who are normally empowered to be engaged in all of that. That would sort of be my first, because you know, when I hear those concepts, my mind immediately goes to, well, it would be wonderful if, you know, every you know, high schooler in Alachua County grows up knowing that they can serve their city, and they can do it from where they are, from who they are, and they don't have to change at all. They can simply just engage, and we have a program and policies that immediately elevate them to invest in them and teach them how to invest in their communities. So yeah, I've got nothing but good things to say. It really looks like a whole lot of work and thoughtfulness went into this, and I'm excited to see the building of these steps over the next couple of years. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Ms. Taylor, did you want to respond to any of that?
I will, Anne's the subject matter expert, but I will say, Commissioner, we are very excited, and I know Anne has been for a long time behind this concept of the community cultivator and community liaisons, and we look forward to learning more of. We were very excited to see the workable model in Boulder, and we can learn some best practices or some hiccups that they ran into and learn from those. So it's exciting to have that that background to use as we move forward. And I think ultimately, you said, what as a commission or commissioner could we do? I think letting us know if this concept is something you too support, and helping us to move that concept forward, I think is going to be essential.
Yeah, well, thank you. And Mr. Mayor, I absolutely support the concepts that have been presented, and the sort of working plan to go forward. It looks very thoughtful, and I can't wait to see it in the future.
Right on. Thank you, Commissioner. Up next, we have Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Shelby and Ann and Andrew for the presentation. I really like the direction that we're headed in. Something that was mentioned was that this is, an iterative process. This is, a draft that we're working from. But I went ahead and took a look at the original draft, and I'm hoping that we can at least come to consensus about one thing, and that is the core values for community engagement. I'm hoping that as we work through this, that these are the values that we're working from, and that they stay the same. So I'm wondering if that's what you envision, or do you imagine some of this changing? I don't know if, I'll just mention a couple that are important to me. Is that we seek to ensure that individuals and groups most affected by a decision will be involved in the decision-making process. We seek to ensure that the public's contributions will influence the decision, and there are at least 8 others. And then there's some pieces about the values in action. So I'd like to hear a little bit about whether or not we envision those remaining our core values as we work through community engagement.
Yeah, I can speak to that. I mean, certainly those are, the most important component. And just as sort of it's been a while since we spoke about this, but These mostly come from the professional association or the network that is across, at least North America, sort of a guiding group around what public participation looks like, the International Association for Public Participation. And these have been adopted from communities around the country. And this is an adaptation with maybe an additional, a few switches, but the values stay the same and, are certainly guiding. I could go through, but in the interest of time, I won't. But, at some point, if you wanted to know more about how that's guiding, say, the comp plan engagement process, I could go sort of line by line and make those connections. But for now, I will say, in answer to your question, yes, these are not changing.
Okay, thank you. And there's also one more thing is that I'm really happy to hear that there's support for this community. Can you remind me what the name is?
Community cultivator. Community
cultivator. It is something that staff has certainly been supportive of, but I also want to mention that, about 2 years ago when I came back from Durham, and I talked about the reverse consulting, that this is something that's very similar to this. It's a different name and it's expanded and there are different aspects to it, but this is something that I personally have been mentioning for quite a while. And I'm happy to see that there's some support and there's traction, that there are people that are interested in implementing this. So thank you, Manager Fellman and everyone else that has done the additional research to help to bring this to fruition. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Sacco.
Commissioner, so thank you guys. Dr. Wolf, nice to see you again. I was just yesterday told that you work with Ms. Carter, and today that was corrected. So nice to see you again. Ms. Shelby, thank you again for the presentation. I am beyond excited about the community cultivator. I feel that it's something that could really reach pockets of our neighbors that we don't routinely get to see, either for a multitude of reasons, but I'm thinking specifically language, where you've all heard me say it, where, if folks don't feel comfortable in the language or they don't understand it, it's difficult for them to understand what's going on, even if it's to their benefit. So I think having something like this across socioeconomic and language spectrums is wonderful, to have someone go back to their community where they are trusted, knowing that they're coming with city-backed information. Because it's one thing for me 6 months ago saying, hey, this is what the city's saying, but it doesn't come with the city's seal of approval. And I think having it as an official position as a cultivator gives a lot more credence to what they're saying. It's not their interpretation. It is a version of, it is exactly what the city is saying, and they are just passing along the information as a quasi-employee, intern, volunteer position. But I think that is a wonderful way to really get to really saturate our message and our needs into the community, to see what we get back as well. So I am beyond excited about that. And I wanted to say that whatever we do, whatever you need for that, I will be the first person you can ask, because I am so excited to see this truly going into the community and making it accessible. You're making our government accessible to people, but also in a comfortable way, where they don't have to come to City Hall if they're not the best public speaker, if they're not comfortable even in English. They're just not going to be the most comfortable standing up at a podium or calling in, but they want to know. I'm also really excited about the Ask Me Anythings. I think it's a great way to just learn, because maybe people may look at an agenda, they may not know what it is, but they may not know what Mr. Persons does and what his entire department is all about. And they want to know a little bit more about all of the things, and questions come to people in those kinds of settings. And I think it's a wonderfully organic way for our community to come to learn about what our departments do and everything that we could do, if they don't know that that's a problem, or within the authority of the city to kind of look into. My one concern is you guys are already overworked, I think. So it does come down to how do we staff this as well, so that we do have experts or subject matter experts or people from the department doing this as well, which I think could tie in with the community cultivators, where they are not the experts, but they're kind of disseminating that information slowly. So you explain it to 7 instead of 700. But I am concerned for the workload that staff would have with a lot of these engagement models, but I am excited for them. So thank you so much for all your work on this.
All right, thank you. Over to you, Mr. Manager.
So at the risk of snatching defeat from the jaws of victory, I do want to just put a couple of cautions out there. So as Commissioner Sacco said, staffing is going to be critical to this, and I will most likely come back to you mid-year, mid-budget year with some sort of increment or adjustment to our budget to keep this going on in fiscal year 21 versus waiting till fiscal year 22. So as we start identifying what those needs are, I will probably come back. The other piece that I want to, caution the commission on, because I don't want to create expectations that we cannot deliver, is that there will never be a perfect engagement process that exists out there. There will always be somebody we didn't talk to, a group that we missed on there. So these are tools that are designed to create the maximum amount of outreach to our neighbors, but it will never be a perfect system. And so as we start looking at the toolkit and the goals and all, those are guiding principles that we will be using to formulate our outreach. But I did want to caution that if you went through a checklist on there for every process, we're probably not going to hit everything with a 10 on there. And then the third piece, I just want to go a little bit into some of the research we found with the Community Cultivator Program and what Boulder is doing. And these are really approaches on two different fronts. One is project front and the other is topic front. So when we have a project, let's say like Southeast 4th, where we're going to be doing work in the neighborhood on there, it's important to have the community connectors, cultivators that are out there working with our neighbors, telling them what's happening, how it's going to work, how it's going to affect them on a day-to-day basis when streets are being ripped up and things like that. And to make sure that during the planning stage, we're hitting what their needs are so that we can address those in there. But the other piece, and this is probably the more topical, or the more point that I think that the commission is looking for, is also the topical community cultivators. So if we're doing work, let's say on zero waste on there, we would retain the cultivators in that reverse consulting role to help us outreach to the community, where we can maybe test drive concepts, hear what needs are, make sure that we're addressing them within the specific topic areas that we're working on. And so there are really those two fronts that the cultivators will be working on, project and topical on there. To the extent that they're project-based, we can build those costs into the project costs, and to the extent that they're topical based, that's where we'll need to identify specific funding to go out there and reach out.
All right, thank you, Mr. Feldman. I have just a broad question that I feel like was answered in the presentation, but I still need some clarity on it because I'm a little slow. What are we looking for moving forward? Like what what's the timeline? Where can we expect to be, say, January 1, March 1, next July when we're making final budget decisions? How is this moving forward? I mean, are we not solely, but are we primarily focused on the comp plan and how we implement this? By the way, it's great to say, okay, we're going to develop all this and then they'll test it on something real that we're doing. Of all the things to test it on, like the comp plan is probably the most complicated, has the longest term impact, it sort of reaches more parts of our organization than any other. So I guess if we can really make it work well for the comp plan update, then everything else should fall right into place. But, I guess, is that where we're focused right now and how we stand this up to be effective with our engagement as we work on the comp plan update? Or am I looking at this differently than y'all?
I would just, one, say the comp plan, as Ann will probably go into, and Andrew and Ann are better equipped to speak about this, but one of the most powerful things about this relationship here is that Andrew and his team at the front end of the comprehensive plan process built engagement into the RFP and planned budgetary wise and staff, not entirely staff wise, but that was part of the grand vision. So yes, it is. We'll learn a lot during the comprehensive plan process. So we look forward to fine tuning the toolkit externally based on what we see there. Internally, I think Ann is aiming towards a November start date. I think we can piece together a little bit to start training for workshop facilitation with a small group of community builders to keep that momentum rolling internally and our internal capacity building. But I see those two things as the opportunities right now to move our engagement work forward internally and externally. And then the cultivators concept, if we could get that moving, certainly that would help on both fronts. So Ann, Andrew, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I can jump in a little bit. And I think we, with the comprehensive plan, in terms of the community cultivator, the reverse consulting, if you remember when we were at the scope discussion, like we had sort of anticipated that was going to be a part of the engagement strategy. So we had allocated some funding in the department budget that we had sort of saved up with bake sales and whatnot. That was like a specific pot of money that we were going to use. That wasn't part of the contract with HRNA, but we had this pot of money that we were going to use to support the engagement efforts on the comp plan. And I think and that money is the way that we're thinking about it, it would go towards reverse consulting or whatever you want to call it. So I think there's a real, opportunity to the mayor's point with the comprehensive plan being so broad and so complex that I think it can really be an opportunity for people to really kind of plug in to a process that will have long-lasting impacts. And we're also doing a brand new comprehensive plan, something that we've never tried before, something that really no one in Florida has done before, and that's rooted in equity. And I think a lot of these engagement concepts that we're talking about are really well suited, I think, for the discussion. And then I did want to add to the sort of larger point. I think one of the things that we've talked about in the department and we've discussed with Shelby and Ann is sort of what's the, like, how much of the sort of community capacity building, like in my context, it's around sort of land use and zoning and those types of things. How much is that part of my department's mission? Meaning, like, is that sort of on par with, reviewing site plans or inspecting buildings or doing code enforcement? In my mind, it is, but when push comes to shove, if we get really busy, or there's if it's somebody else is sitting in my seat and doesn't have the same sort of thought, there's nothing sort of institutionalized that's going to have that sort of function of the department last beyond who happens to be on the commission, or who the manager is, or who the department director is. And I think that's part of that sort of institutionalizing that this is like something that we need to be doing just for the general sort of welfare of the community. Like the neighborhood planning partnership, for instance, like I sort of tune that into the, sort of thinking about it as pre-work for the comprehensive plan, to sort of start engaging with neighborhoods before, the comp plan was sort of on the street, and before we came to neighborhoods, in the 9-10 months later and said, hey, there's this comprehensive plan. Yeah. Oh, you've never heard of it before? Let me explain it to you. We wanted to do some of that sort of on the ground legwork beforehand. But that's sort of more of a that was more of just a convenient excuse to basically get into communities and start talking about the sort of that sort of ask me anything. And my staff did like 100-slide PowerPoint, of like every planning concept, super detailed, and it was really great. And we got to the first meeting, and we got the questions that were just very earnest questions about, like, how does property work? How does, like, and we realized, like, gosh, there's a lot of capacity building that we could be doing that, but we have to start, somewhere. And I think, if we don't have a sort of project like the comp plan, is that still an important thing for the department to be doing, regardless of whether it's an issue-based or a project-based thing? Is it just enough for it to be to do that community capacity building?
And let me just jump in here too, because staff capacity is going to be key if this works. This cannot just be a collateral duty of somebody, right? Because when that person leaves or gets busy with something else that has been tasked to them, engagement will fall to the side. What we need to do is figure out how we institutionalize this within departments and add the staff capacity, which probably is going to be 1 or maybe 2 additional community builders within a department, in order to carry this forward. So if we're serious about this, and I think the commission is very serious about having a strong neighbor engagement program out there, we're going to have to identify what resources we need. I'm going to have to come to the commission with a plan to provide those resources so that we can carry this out. Because a lot of efforts, and I think you've seen this historically in the city, are really good efforts, and we get out of the box and we start them, and then something else comes to the forefront, and the people that were doing those efforts now are moving on to something else. So if engagement with our neighbors is a priority for the commission, then we will need to devote the resources to make it work. And I will come back to you with a plan to do that.
Ms. Wolf, did you want to add anything at this time, or did they cover it?
No, I think we're good. I think everybody else sort of said everything that needs to be said. So I will decline this time. Maybe next time.
Thank you. That's somebody with a lot of education and rhetoric right there. So if I want to, because there's just a lot coming at me. So right now, what because I'm trying to figure out what I can keep my focus on to help this move forward. So right now, we've got the comp plan, and trust me, I had a phenomenal conversation with our consultants, particularly around engagement. So I feel great about that we have the built-in capacity, the intent, a plan, the right folks to do it. That's great. In addition, and I heard November, I'm not going to write that in blood or anything, but I'm hearing before the end of the year, basically, internally, we're going to be working on building out our capacity within different departments to basically give our staff, our community builders, the tools they need to start integrating this with their normal duties on a regular basis. I'm not saying we're going to do it for everybody, but we're going to be starting with that internal community building capacity, correct? Yes. Okay. So that's the near term. And then the third part of this is we're going to start working with the external portion and identifying and helping stand up what's the name we're using? Community
cultivators.
Community cultivators, yeah. Which, by the way, I love that name. I think reverse consulting is confusing, and also whatever, consulting's consulting. So I think I've always kind of been lost by that term. So I like the community cultivator because that I don't know. My brother's a farmer. I like things like cultivating is a very powerful word. So that's the other part of this, that we're going to start identifying what that looks like, and I'm guessing also people who can be early adopters of that model that we can start working with to then build that external program out. And that's what I'm guessing is going to start happening like early 2021. Am I right am I hearing all that correctly? Yes. Okay.
Sorry, I'm trying to mute and unmute myself. I'll let Ann speak about the Community Builders Working Group, but yes, our intention is to kind of reinvigorate the Community Builders Working Group and to start with a small group to do a workshop, say, on how to be an effective facilitator. And that would probably be focused primarily on our more forward-facing departments. So that would be kind of a step one on our internal capacity building, but understanding too that the long-term goal is not just kind of identifying existing community builders and adding that as an additional task, but eventually making that part of somebody's role or responsibility in different departments in a later stage. And then the comprehensive plan, yes, and Andrew and Ann would be better equipped to speak to when we can start to see kind of the steps of the comprehensive plan engagement strategy, boots on the ground, rubber hitting the road kind of thing. I'm not certain on that. Guys, could you like status update on what that timeline looks like?
So I have a couple things that I can say. That it's been tricky to figure out specifically the boots on the ground in a way that's safe for everyone involved during the pandemic. And they have not been able, the consultants haven't been able to travel down here throughout the pandemic. So it's backed everything up a bit. The initial hope has passed. I don't mean the hope has passed. The hope is still there, but the hope for the date that we would start, that date has passed. And so we were thinking again of November if possible, but it's looking realistically as though we won't be able to start doing the boots on the ground portion of engagement until next year. However, with that said, one of the next steps in the process, to really simplify what that process has been like, one is we need, if we're working with consultants, we need consultants who really understand where we're coming from and can show us that. So that we've had that. The second step of the process is to do this internal engagement. So with a big project, or sometimes even with just a small project, to make sure that across departments, we have some some solid idea of what we're doing moving forward, and do that internal engagement first, because again, with those 8 core principles, it's so important that we know why we're engaging with the public, that we're able to articulate that in a way that's extremely clear to folks. And that we know that we're giving them the information that they need to participate in meaningful ways. It doesn't help much to have more engagement with folks who are not, that don't have a shared understanding of what we're doing. It just creates confusion and I think mistrust. And so we want to be sure that we're working in community with community members to make sure that they understand what the comprehensive plan is, what it does, what the different components are. So that will be the next step. And so it's really, we're working with people to design the process in part, and also in the design of what the material is that they're going to be sharing with the community. So we think that the people who are best able to explain what a comp plan is, no offense to any of the amazing planners that we have, probably aren't experts, right? We need to use experts and design information with experts working with folks who have expertise in the community and can speak in ways that are clear and effective to the communities that they are most familiar with. So that'll be the next step. And so as a step in the engagement process, that designing the material to explain all of the complexities of a comp plan, we're going to be doing that as a co-design process with community members. And I think some of that can be done well before we actually are able to get boots on the ground. So we can certainly bring back information on how that's going at some point. Andrew, what else do you have to add? Nothing.
No, that's awesome.
Okay, thank you all. So, here's my ask of all of you, but most directly at the manager, is, I want to know what support you need from the commission, and it seems like maybe not right away, but soon that's going to need to come in the form of increased staffing, and so it is. I want you to hear from me and hopefully all of us that we support that. This is a priority for us, and we want to make sure that this isn't going to be an obstacle because of lack of staffing. That we're going to give this our best shot, and one of the barriers is not going to be because we don't have enough people dedicated to making it work. And the second is, my ask of you is just please let me know how I can be of assistance, whether that's meeting with our community building working groups, or if that's helping with the early stages of the external community cultivator groups, however I can be of service and help make this work both internally and externally, just let me know. I don't want to insert myself where I'm not helpful, but I certainly want to offer up whatever I can if that's going to make this work better and whatever, add legitimacy to it, or make it bring attention to it, or just help me so I am aware of exactly what our other community builders and neighbors are going through and learning and helping build. So that's just a sort of offer and ask that I make as we move forward. Okay, Commissioner Johnson, back to you.
Thank you, Mayor. I did have one more question. Andrew, you mentioned that there were separate resources set aside for the community engagement piece of that because you anticipated that. Something that I was excited to see in the downtown redevelopment plan is that some of these same concepts mentioned. And I'm wondering, and the people that, whatever group it was that won the bid for the plan, they specifically mentioned some of this type of community engagement and reverse consulting, AKA community cultivation. So do we see that the people that were hired for these larger consulting initiatives are going to do this work, or are they going to be working with the city? Can you tell me about that?
So I'll take the downtown plan. So very similar to what we're doing with the comprehensive plan. We require the consultant to talk to us about how they envision community engagement to work. And then we have reserved money aside in the budget that we're not giving to the consultant, that we can provide the city resources necessary to do that. So it would be some combination thereof. They may fund some community cultivators. We may fund some community cultivators. So as we approach each of these projects, we will need to sit down with them, develop a plan, make sure we understand the role that they're going to take and the role that the city is going to take. But this cannot be something we just hand off to a consultant and expect them to fulfill independently, because I think there will be gaps. They don't know the community like we know the community.
Is that how we're going to approach this going forward? Because the reason I ask is because it feels like in the past we have paid consultants a lot of money to do this consulting community engagement work that has not necessarily been authentic. So that money has been paid to them, and they have done it without the results that we necessarily want. So to me, it seems like that would already be built into the contract, and then they would be then required to at least spend some of that money doing the, funding the community cultivators. Does that make sense? These consultants get paid hundreds of dollars an hour, and we come back with sometimes inauthentic results. So
right. So I guess what I'm saying is I'd rather control the community cultivator piece of that.
Okay.
Hire the cultivators that will feed the information into.
And then therefore pay the consultants less, it sounds like, because to me, it doesn't need, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
That's the answer I was wanting to hear, Lee. Thanks.
The old definition of a consultant is paying somebody to tell you what time it is by looking at your watch.
So it sounds like that that at least some of the funding from this can be, it will come from some of the consultants that we have, or that it will come from, but the money that we were paying them now can be put towards some of the community cultivators, which I'm happy to hear about, because to me, as we move forward and are thinking about this, yes, expansion is possible, but I'd also like to think about reprioritization of things that we are already doing. So to me, the consulting falls into that. And I'd also, before we start to add positions or expand, I'd like to think more about reprioritization first.
Well,
That's all I have.
We'll look at that when we look at what resources we have. But I will tell you that everything we're doing has a constituency built around it.
Mm-hmm. And one more thing I'd like to say is that I appreciate the work that you have done on Boulder, Colorado. And one of the reasons I was asking about the core values for community engagement earlier, and making sure that the people that are most affected by the decisions are at the table and actually, giving their input and are influencing the decisions, is because Boulder is also a much different place than Gainesville is. It is much different demographic, much different, many different issues that they're dealing with. So I think it's important to also do some research on these kinds of programs and communities that are similar to Gainesville, racial, economic, university kind of, town gown relationship makeup, if there is that out there. And if there isn't, then we should at least be aware of that and understand that, there is a much different program. The program will look different in Boulder because it is a different demographic.
Yeah, I think you'll find Boulder is very similar to Gainesville, at least on my research. A university town, a lot of the same demographic issues on there in terms of a majority minority makeup within their community, poverty levels, and and as such, it's the only thing I think is different is they have big mountains. And we don't now. There's never going to be an identical program. And again, what we like to do, and I think the mayors use this term, the idea is to take people's ideas in other communities, adopt them, and make them better, and sort of fine tune them for ours. And so, in the public sector, there's no sort of pride of ownership on these ideas. So we look around, we see who's got good stuff, and we try to adapt it to ourselves.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you both. The U.S. Conference of Mayors unofficial motto is "Good mayors borrow and great mayors steal." So we'll build that out citywide. All right, thank you, Commissioner A. Santos.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Might have misheard this. I want to get a quick more clarification on the community engagement for the comp plan. And I know you're talking about the boots on the ground and delaying that. And I agree, but I mean, if we're waiting for COVID to be over, I mean, that's a year, maybe, until the virus and actually really being able to have full kind of thing. Is that what we're talking about, of delaying the comp plan or not? Or I misheard, or no? Okay, we're just going to look at different ways to do community engagement during COVID. Okay, all right. Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, and that's going to have to be the way for everything, right? I mean, it's I think it would be optimistic to think a year from now that it's no longer something we think about or worry about. I think that's probably going to be, well, Commissioner, until the and I's last days in office, we'll probably still be talking about COVID, which is a little over 2 years from now. Okay, I'm very hopeful, very, very hopeful. A lot of work went into this, clearly. But now it's the implementation, getting it done and sort of making it part of our DNA, and that's going to be really hard. But again, Shelby, Ann, Andrew, everybody, I'm here to do whatever it is to be useful, including staying out of your way if that's what best serves the interest of the organization. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Simmons, I didn't see your hand there. Go ahead.
That's okay, Mayor. Thank you so much. I have several questions and comments, and I think you touched on it, Mr. City Manager. I am concerned about unintended consequences, and I think you briefly touched about how you need to get a plan together, how we need to maybe look at hiring possible staff. So what I would like, and I think I would feel comfortable with looking at a backup plan. What's the backup plan? What are our expectations? What if this, what are the unintended consequences? And I have to disagree with the comparison with Boulder, Colorado. And I'm looking at the demographics, and this 1.16% Black or African American. So I have I'm quite concerned about that demographic and how that relates to the city of Gainesville and our current demographic. Also with the Bieber report, all of that information that came out of the Bieber report and the income levels here in Gainesville versus Boulder, Colorado, I think there's a disparity in that. So I would personally like to see something that really truly mirrors the city or actively reflect the city of Gainesville as we look at trying to implement this community engagement toolkit. I'm very concerned about some of the things that I heard, and particularly, like I said earlier, it's just what's the backup plan? I know for certain that nothing is fail-proof, and that nothing is definite. But just looking at the actual comparison between the two cities, I'm hesitant to really get on board with what I was hearing. And I don't know if my colleagues looked at the comparison between Boulder and the city of Gainesville. I just don't think it's an actual reflection of what what we have here and what they have, maybe in some areas. The presentation, from my opinion, from what I heard, was very, it was almost, it seemed like I've heard it before, and I'm pretty sure I have. I just didn't see any. I saw I didn't see any, but I saw very minimal movement as what we talked about a year ago. It seems to me that some of the points that were made, we've made these points a year ago. We've been talking about this forever. So I'm just concerned about the comparison. I don't think it accurately reflects who we are, comparing us to Boulder. The cultivators, I know that sounds great, but again, we need something that's going to look at fail proof, or something that's going to just the unintended consequences. I think, Mayor, you mentioned it. We talked about, we start at the gate doing something great, and then we fall on our face because, or maybe that was you, Mr. City Manager, where the staff is pulled from one place to another. And that's when additional staff is going to come in handy. And for me personally, I would like to see a commitment and some accountability on our end. Once we start looking at community engagement, once we start accurately and being more efficient, going out into the community and trying to bring in or try to be more proactive. I think oftentimes, and we've seen this happen so much in the past, that we drop the ball, people get burnt out, citizens become disengaged. So I haven't seen that in this report. I haven't seen what are we going to do when those type of things happen. What is the recourse? What is our backup plan? And for me, I think that's extremely important. We need to come up with additional ways and methods to make sure that once we start this process, what are we going to do? What are we going to have in place if we come up against that brick wall? Because I'm afraid of when that does happen, we're going to be right back to square one. We're going to be scrambling again. And I'm just something I think the community is, we need to get past that point and actually have a plan that reflects actual movement and progress. So those are the things that I seen that was missing from this. I'm not sold on this. And I just want to see some accountability. I would like to see some more meat on the bones with this. It seems as though it was, it's not what I expected. It was kind of, it was just something odd about this. And I don't know exactly what it is. And let me ask a question. So Shelby, you're the marketing, what's your relationship with community engagement from the marketing? Well, let me ask the city manager, what's Shelby's role in this? Just being as a marketing person?
No, so Shelby is the director of the Office of Communications and Engagement. So
okay. So
she oversees the engagement role now. That was part of our reorganization back in February.
Okay.
Engagement was basically a one-person effort within the Strategic Initiatives Office.
Okay.
And so I felt it was better aligned with outreach because that's really what communications is about. Shelby is not marketing in that regard.
Okay.
So our communications and engagement process needs to be consolidated in a combined effort. And so that represented the realignment there. Let me just say too that the idea of community cultivators was, while Boulder is an example of a program that has happened, this was developed, and the idea was developed independently through the work that Shelby and Ann were doing. Boulder is just an example where it has worked on there. And I think, as Commissioner Johnson pointed out, Durham, North Carolina has a program that, heavily involved on reverse consulting. So whether you call it reverse consulting, community connectors as Boulder does, community cultivators as we will be calling it, these are all techniques that from an engagement standpoint, communities have started adopting and have worked. The most formal program I've seen to date, and not saying that there aren't more formal programs, happen to be Boulder, but we're not doing it because Boulder has done it. We have a concept. We found some work that another city has done to show that it has been successful on there. And while Boulder may have a small African American population, they do have a very large Hispanic population, and the numbers are sort of flipped there in terms of minority makeup of the community. It's mostly Hispanic with a small African American population. I think if you look at our numbers, we have a very large African American population and a smaller Hispanic population, and so their program, and their demographics are similar in the extent that there is a non-white population that is very significant in their community. They are a university community as well, so a lot of the same type of wealth and poverty type issues exist there as well. And so that was the reference I was saying in terms of similar demographics. There's going to be nobody that has our exact demographics out there. But we look at communities that have similar situations that they're dealing with in terms of how they engage non-traditionally engaged sections of their communities.
Okay, and that's fine. So do you agree we need a backup plan?
Oh, we need a backup plan to the backup plan too.
Yeah.
So I think we're doing engagement now. We know it can be better on there, and so to some degree, what we're doing now is a backup plan. But I think as we continue moving forward and we look and see what others are doing, if there are additional outreach engagement strategies that we can add into our toolkit, we're certainly open to doing that. So again, there's not going to be one solution that we're going to adopt and say, this is it. This is a section of the public sector that is continually evolving. We hope to be on the forefront of that evolution. But if another community comes up with something that's working, we're going to look at it. If we think it'll work for us, we will add it to the toolkit and implement it. And maybe the community cultivators is not the best solution for us, and we need to look at another alternative. So we're always looking out there and going to try to find what's working.
And I think that's what I think that's part of my concern, city manager, and I didn't mean to cut you off. I think that we need to have the backup plan, at least a conversation, or have that in place, and not just simply say, yeah, we're going to need a backup plan. For me to feel comfortable, I would like to see a backup plan and maybe look at other places that are indeed similar to us and what they've done. I understand exactly what you're saying about Boulder, Colorado and the demographics, and I totally get it. But I'm just saying, for me, I think it's just extremely important that we come close to a situation that's similar to us. And I know Commissioner Johnson talked about Durham, North Carolina. But I'm very hopeful and optimistic that there are similar communities like ours in the United States of America. And I just think having a backup plan and having something in place to counter unintended consequences, it is just a smart thing to do, because we're talking about implementing this or piloting this during the comp plan. And so to me, that's important, and it's extremely it's extremely important that we have a backup plan, or we have something that if something go awry, we can easily transition into a backup plan, or we can have an answer for an unintended consequence. I didn't see this in this presentation. And so that's my concern. And I hope you take that into consideration. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, both. Commissioner Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't want to belabor things too much here, but I do want to, first of all, thank the manager's office and the communications and engagement folks for putting this plan together. I think it's a good plan that is workable. And I want to remind my colleagues of a couple things. First of all, the community engagement is the reason that I brought up last Thursday, taking a good hard look at our advisory board structure. Our advisory boards are made up of hundreds of residents of our community, mostly residents of our city, but also a few outside the city, who by design come from all over our city. And the better we engage with those people who have been willing to sign up and say, yes, I want to be on these boards, the better our community will be. That's one level of engagement, one program of engagement that currently exists that we don't always think about as engagement. And I know that we're trying to do some different kinds of outreach and engagement here. And we should always be doing something to improve and rethink what we're doing from that perspective. The other thing that is straight up engagement that we forget about because we do it is be commissioners. The number one team of engagement in our community is by design the city commission. I don't know about you, but people aren't shy about talking with me about what we ought to be doing. And I don't think they're probably shy about it with y'all either. And I think we all seek it out. I think we're all doing that. We just don't think of it as engagement. So what we talked about today is another kind of engagement. It's another level, another program of engagement. But we have engagements that we already do. Every time GRU goes out to turn the power back on, those community builders need to be hearing and relaying back through the system what people are saying. When Public Works goes out to patch a pothole, that's an opportunity for engagement. All these things, every time the city, our 2,400, 2,500 community builders interact with somebody in our community, that's an opportunity for engagement. That's a thing we have to remember and to empower. Not only the folks who are our community builders, but us as community builders too. I worry when we go looking for a thing that is going to solve a problem, because engagement's always going to be an ongoing process in every part of our community. And we've got programs and systems that are already designed to do it, and they don't work all that badly. We need to do more. We absolutely need to be doing more. But let's not sell ourselves super short here and go thinking that there's going to be one program that if we just implement it, everything's going to be awesome, because it doesn't exist. I think we've had a really good engagement this afternoon with each other. I like the program. I don't care whether it comes from Abilene or Boulder or Waldo or wherever. I think it can work. I was one of the people who said I didn't understand how reverse consulting would work, and then I needed, a better understanding of how we could implement that. And I see that here. So I feel like that's a huge move forward. It helps me understand it better and how we can make it happen. So maybe I'm just being Pollyanna, but I think this is a good step. I think it's something we need to let work. And I will tell you that in between meetings today, when I go out to Publix, I'll probably be doing some community engagement. And I think y'all will too. So remember, we're the #1 team of community engagement for the city of Gainesville, whether we call it that or not. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Kyle, do we have anybody waiting online to speak to this issue?
We do. We have one caller waiting on the line. And before we get to that caller, Nathan Scott, I just did want to mention we've had several callers who dialed in and who have since dropped off. If you're looking to provide comment, please dial back in and we'll be able to get to you in short order. With that, we're going to turn to Nathan Scott. Nathan, go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon, mayors, commissioners, Nathan Scott. So first and foremost, I want to commend Commissioner Simmons. I thought your comments on this issue, despite the lengthy speeches of your colleagues, were directly on point. This commission, for some unknown reason, seems to have an infatuation spending taxpayer money and benchmarking off other communities, Boulder, Portland, Seattle. I think you took at least five people at taxpayer expense to go to Boulder. You come back and I think you use these benchmarking opportunities as the ability to go supplement your travel. And I think it's, from a taxpayer perspective, it's disturbing. It's good to be aware of what other communities are doing. But the problem here, commissioners, is despite, all the efforts of this commission, time and time again, we're having a discussion about hiring another consultant. With all the significant expansion of city government and all the highly new paid staff members, you guys can't seem to do anything, and the new staff can't seem to do anything themselves without hiring yet another consultant at every single city commission meeting. I think that's a sign of poor governance and fiscal irresponsibility. You guys are wanting to expand city government here again by hiring community builders. And Mr. Feldman said he's going to come back and bring an increment to you. How are you going to fund this, commissioners? You have some of the highest electric rates in the state. You don't seem to care about that. You just care about expanding city government. And I mean, there's many people in the community, dedicated people in the community, that already do this for free. You don't need to pay them. Doris Edwards, Carla Miles, I could go on and on and on. But I mean, is this really a way to reward your political allies or what have you? There's no need to pay for people to help engage and better their neighborhoods. So taxpayers shouldn't be funding that, and I take exception to that as a taxpayer. So again, you guys can't seem to do anything without hiring a consultant. This is a utopianistic expansion of city government. And it's good to communicate. It's good to collaborate. It's good to keep your neighbors informed so you don't have GNV riots blow up in your face because you're not listening to your community and you don't listen to your community anyway. That's the problem, commissioners. That's the disconnect. So again, I would encourage you guys to listen to the concerns expressed by Commissioner Simmons, the concerns of taxpayers who are being forced to pay for your ongoing expansion of city government, that you guys you don't have enough money as it is now. Every meeting, you're spending more and more money. Every meeting, you're hiring another consultant. Why is that, commissioners? Why can't you just live within your means like many struggling, hardworking Gainesville families that are struggling through a pandemic? You guys think you're special, and I'll close with this real quick. You guys can't come up with anything original on your own. You guys have to go get it from somewhere else. That's disturbing in itself for people that claim to be so enlightened. Thank you.
And I see that we have an additional caller with a phone number ending in 9878. Caller ending in 9878. I'm just going to unmute you momentarily. Are you calling to talk about the current topic?
Hello?
Hello, you'll want to mute your background noise. Are you calling to provide comment on the current agenda item?
Sure.
Community toolkit?
Yes. I'm having trouble. Oh, I have to mute. Where do I? Oh, here. There. I have to mute it on the speaker's side, not my side.
Exactly. It sounds,
Yes,
sounds
I'm
great now.
following.
Could you provide your name and then you have 3 minutes?
Don Fields. Don Fields.
Go ahead, John.
Mr. Fields, go ahead.
Hello?
Mr. Fields, we can hear you.
Hello? You can hear me?
You're live
Am
and
I
on
on now?
Yep, you can provide your comment now.
Yeah. Okay. This is Don Fields. I wanted to support Gigi Simmons in her position. The word she was seeking when she was talking to the lack of backup plans and other planning is the preparation is thin. There's no clear schedule. There's no clear listing of the items of when they're going to be addressed and what items need to be addressed. And I just want to support her in her endeavors to put some meat on the bones, as she said. Thank you.
Thanks, Don. And we go now to Debbie Martinez. Debbie, you're on the line and can go ahead and provide your comment.
Yes, thank you so much for taking my call. And I believe we're at a good starting point with some of the suggestions that Commissioner Simmons made. But I would like to make one suggestion, and I'm not trying to be funny about this, but rather than spending another penny towards a consultant, hire a psychiatrist just to review this entire meeting on this agenda item, to re-engage, to engage, to engage, to re-engage, and just let that psychiatrist listen to that whole presentation, not to criticize Ms. Taylor, or Shelby Taylor, I believe that's the woman's name, that's over the communication/engagement division of the commission. But have the psychiatrist listen to that entire presentation and listen to every single comment that the city commissioners made. And I think you could save a lot of money and time and really come up with a plan of how to engage the citizens. Because right now, if many citizens were bothering to, I just went ahead and forced myself to sit through this whole thing, would run from City Hall as fast as they could. So that's my suggestion. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. And we go now to Joe Batty. Joe, are you calling to talk about the Community Engagement Toolkit?
Hello, yes. This is Joe Beatty. I just wanted to thank Commissioner Simmons. She started down the road of asking the questions that I'm sitting here asking, and about the comparisons and about the communities. And I haven't been able to listen to the entire presentation, but I did want to commend Commissioner Simmons. Keep asking questions, please, because decisions are too often made without asking the important questions and making sure you have the important answers. Thank you again, Commissioner Simmons.
Mr. Mayor, we have no more callers calling to comment on this agenda item. For your awareness, my colleague Adam Saslow is going to be taking over duties facilitating the public comment for the remainder of this afternoon's meeting.
Okay, thank you very much for your service up till now, Kyle. Appreciate it. And Adam, welcome to the show. And we will turn back to Commissioner Sacco.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a lot of comments, but I'm going to keep it to just one. When our staff proposes the possibility of paying minority and socioeconomically disadvantaged population leaders, when they suggest paying them for the labor they already do, I think that is a wonderful idea. There is a saying in minority communities that it is exhausting to do the emotional work that we do to explain to overprivileged white people how difficult it is to live the lives that we live. So when people in this community call in from a position of privilege to say it's not necessary to pay people, they're already doing this work for free, I think that is reprehensible. And so I am very excited that we will be paying people, community leaders, for the work that they already do out of love, but that we can also pay them and compensate them for the hours upon hours of work that they do. So if nothing else of this presentation is taken seriously, I hope we do continue with the community cultivator aspect, because that is giving money back to our community, that is thanking leaders who already help our community. And it is acknowledging that we are in a position of power and privilege and can help those communities. And anyone who says otherwise is too blind to their own privilege to see what good that could do to the community. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. And I'm just going to conclude with a point that Ms. Wolf made at the beginning of her comments, because I think it was important as we move forward with this very ambitious plan. And we should be ambitious. Anything less would be a disservice to our neighbors. But it's going to be an iterative process. What we have today is not what it will end up being. And as we build this out, we will learn. We will learn what works, what doesn't work. We will learn what our community wants more of, what they don't need as much of. And we will end up with a plan, not in 3 months, not in 6 months even, but down the road that will serve our entire community through all of our different departments and the entire organization to effectively be partners with the people who are most affected by these decisions. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited that we don't know where this is going to end up, but that we're committed to the process because that's what's going to build a truly unique and highly effective community engagement plan. So I hope you're all looking as forward to the work as I am. And I thank staff in advance for what is going to be a very challenging, but I think ultimately rewarding process. So with that, we will go ahead and move to our next item, which is the, sort of a continuation, not in a legal sense. We did not continue the item, but a continuation of our conversation about the GCRA. We had our meeting with the members of the advisory board last week, and so I wanted to put this on our agenda just in case there were any follow-up items or any specific direction the commission wanted to give to staff based on that conversation last week. So we'll start off with Commissioner Santos.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a follow-up question from the previous meeting on facade grants, and I believe it was said that the current proposal is to only have facade grants in certain areas, and I wanted to get a better idea of that, and I have some concerns. I'd like to get a better idea of why only doing certain areas and what areas are we leaving out in terms of the facade grants.
Okay, thanks. Who can answer that question? Oh, hey, there you go, Ms. Vidal.
There you're muted. There.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I'm having to go back and forth between VPN and not on VPN. So sorry about that. Sarah Vidal, Gainesville CRA. We'll be coming forward with this program next month, and it's revised. And I think Commissioner Hayes Santos, that was a misunderstanding. It's not that we're only offering it in certain areas, is that we have different tiered levels of contribution based on a few different qualifying things. And so we'll go into it next month with you all and at the GCRA board first, but it's a kind of a tiered program. We did in the plan have an area of focus for these types of programs, you know, that the community kind of told us, hey, focus here. We really want to look at, for instance, you know, University Avenue between I think it was 13th and 6th, and then a bunch of the corridors in East Side were included as priority areas. But anyway, it's open to the entire district. So first of all, I'll set the record straight, and then it's a tiered system. And so we can go into greater detail now if you'd like, or just wait until the presentation next month.
If you just don't mind emailing it to me, I think that might be easier and I can just review it. And you don't have to go through the whole thing right now. But
okay.
I would like to take a look and see what the tiers are and what the areas are. One other thing I would like for us to consider as part of the CRA is something that's kind of come out of COVID, and we're starting to see some of it happening now with a few restaurants downtown of starting to expand their kind of outside seating areas into parking areas and outside of their places. Has there been any thought into, and talking to some of them, they like it, and it sounds like they actually want to keep some of those outside areas and try to create little, in some of those parking spaces, outside seating areas that they could then use in the future, even after kind of some of these come up with COVID. But has there been any discussions, or I guess any thoughts on programs for kind of helping some of our downtown businesses who I think, or even all of our businesses around the city who may be trying to create more outside places, part of this, or in this CRA district, because there is a need, I think, right now, and there's also restaurants are definitely in a very, I think, precarious situation right now too, financially too. So trying to find ways to help them survive. So I was wondering if there's been any thoughts on that, Mr. Manager.
So we've started discussing the idea of what's going to work and what's not going to work and how to evaluate that in terms of pedestrian and traffic flows, see where there's opportunity to create more pedestrian oriented areas in the downtown. So that's a conversation. We want to see where the successes are in the streetery program and then come back to the commission. Certainly, in terms of assisting businesses to fund those, if we do move forward with it, is something that we can potentially look to the GCRA department to do, but not something that we've discussed with the department at this point.
Okay. Yeah, I believe it's something we should look at and definitely figure out what works and doesn't work for us here. But I think it definitely creates more vibrant places having people outside instead of inside, even after COVID's all over. One more other question comes down to lighting in our kind of more denser areas. And especially in our downtown area, even along the corridors and things like that. I think there's some issues with our lighting code that causes even the new buildings that are getting built are not light enough. And we don't really discriminate too much between, that I've seen in our code, between lighting, allowed lighting and how dense, or the minimum lighting in our kind of downtown districts or U9 or the more urban districts versus in a residential cul-de-sac in the middle of nowhere in the city. It's still the same kind of lighting standards. And I think we should have different lighting standards for in our kind of downtown area versus in the residential areas. But on a kind of a broader thing of our downtown areas, one of the complaints I get from a lot of people is how dark it is. And people don't feel safe to walk. And I mean, even like corridors like right across from Boat Plaza on the Alachua County side is pretty much just dark, where the Alachua County building is at night. And I've had friends who are women who just won't, they're saying they don't like coming downtown or won't park in certain places and are scared to go to certain places because of how dark it is. So I guess one of the things is looking at lighting downtown and how is that part of the plan, or is that part of the plan for the CRA and using those funding dollars for that?
So Commissioner, I'll take that unless Sarah wants to jump in and sort of go off of mute.
Yep, Sarah Vidalfin. So one thing, it's not explicitly built into the plan, but there are several corridors we've been asked to focus on within the plan. And so that's always something that we look at, as part of like a streetscaping effort or some kind of corridor improvement effort within the right of way. And then I would also say that, throughout projects like the Heritage Trail, right? I mean, there's a huge lighting component to that for safety reasons. So it's always something that we pay attention to. And I think it's safely within a lot of the initiatives within our plan, but it's not explicitly called out because it's just part of what we do. And we could provide a list of projects that we've done over the years with lighting, even just thinking about 12th Street over in University Heights was specifically just a lighting project due to safety concerns in that neighborhood. So we have a pretty strong history of providing lighting throughout the district.
Yeah, and I guess that's one of my concerns when you mentioned just kind of the corridors and things like that. And there are those kind of major corridors, and some of them have lighting issues, but it's coming kind of one street over from those corridors and then things like that where it does get darker, and that's I guess I don't want us to be restricted just to a corridor and like, hey, there's really an area, downtown area, not like a 1 or 2 streets, and it's not massive, but being able to create a walkable area, I think will save our down, and being able to have it at night and will be able to save our downtown. So that's one of the things I want us to strongly consider is making sure that lighting is good lighting is a portion of our downtown strategy to make it inviting for everyone. And then also, not really today, but just I also think we should be looking at our lighting codes. I don't know if you see some of the new buildings that are getting built on like the hub on 13th Street. Drive by there at night and look at the sides of like the 13th Street and what is it, like 3rd Avenue or 4th Avenue. They're kind of dark. There's dark areas. These are brand new buildings that are getting built, which meet our codes. And I went walking around there and it didn't feel, that's an urban area. I mean, that's an 8-story building, and so our 7-story building, it should be kind of a more well-lit area. So I think there might be issues with our zoning code that we need to, or our lighting code that we should look at in the future as well. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Up next, we have Commissioner Simmons.
Thank you, Mayor. How you doing, Miss Sarah Vidal Finn? On the paint program, where are we on that?
That's coming back next month for your review.
Okay, I had a lot of inquiries about that. So that'll be next month. So will it be implemented next month or?
No, it's a revised.
Sorry,
it's a revision to the program. Yep. And so that's what we had actually on the agenda for this month, but pushed it back to do the big overhaul presentation.
Okay. And so if someone was to ask me, what should I say? It's still under review?
Well, we have some people that we were working with under the old program guidelines, and we said we would honor people that were major back on overhauling the program, or the board and the commission do not like the new direction of the programs. We were hoping to have it considered next month for approval.
Okay. Thank you for that. Also, when we met with the advisory board, I unfortunately had to leave early. Is it anyhow you can briefly update me on what the end result about 8th and Waldo? Was there any further discussion about it? Because the last thing I heard, we were maybe looking at city manager had the capers in place, and we were just looking at putting a team together. And I just wanted to know, was any other further discussion about it? Did we make any decisions about it, or we just was an open discussion?
It was just open discussion.
Okay.
What I told the commission is that the project will fall under me directly, and I will be using different departments to form a team on this, to look at the different aspects and start figuring out the engagement piece to start helping develop the ultimate plan for it. That because there were different pieces that are different departments that were involved, from transportation and mobility to parks and recreation to the CRA. It's going to need to be run out of our office up here.
Okay, and what about GTech? I know we were having some consultants come and identify what would be the best use for GTech campus? Where are we on that?
We have submitted that contract into workflow a little while ago for approval, so we're waiting on approval.
Okay, so we haven't hired the actual consultants yet?
We have not.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much. I think that's all for right now, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to ask Manager Fellman, I was looking at the draft budget and I want to know how much space there is for other projects. I feel like a lot of what we've talked about pretty recently with the equitable development and some of the programs we want could have the opportunity to come out of the CRA funds. Is there any space for that?
It depends how much space you're thinking. So without knowing specifics, and again, what we spend out of the GCRA budget has to tie back to the GCRA plan. That was the agreement that we had with the county. And so that sort of follows the previous statutory framework. So we just need to be, careful that the programs really affect within the four walls of this larger district. And so again, it depends on the program and what you're envisioning the resources potentially to be with regard to whether we have the ability to do those in fiscal year 21 or not.
So at the last meeting, the equitable development meeting that we had, we asked you to come back to the commission with, at this point, I think it's at least 4 or 5 different funding sources for some programs and or, initiatives like the Community Land Trust. Are you thinking that this is going to be a way to fund some of that, or are you thinking a little bit differently?
I'm thinking that, so if you're referring to the 16-part motion that the commission passed that had several programs in it, I think, for example, Commissioner Ward had the Welcome Back and the All in the Family program. We're actually looking at those falling within the 4 corners of the CRA boundaries and developing a program using CRA funds for that. But you need to be cognizant that, for example, the Welcome Back program would not be eligible for using CRA funding outside of the boundaries. So what we talked about, and we actually talked about it this morning, was looking at how we develop the parameters of that program. And one of the parameters would have to be within the 4 walls of the district.
And is this something that you're looking at for fiscal year 21?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And that answers one of my questions. And I will tell you that my original thinking for both those programs can fall very well within the CRA map as it exists. There are plenty of neighborhoods that we could start with that are absolutely in the CRA district. So I'm very glad to hear that. Let me get to the rest of my list here. 4th Avenue was also on the plan, correct? Okay. I hope that we can take sort of a multidisciplinary approach because I've got some ideas that I want to put together on that. I really see 4th Avenue, if we do it right, as a key to link the campus area with all the way out east, as we call it now. Because 4th Avenue, as it curves around, it becomes a different avenue. I think it becomes 3rd as you cross 15th Street. Goes all the way to Hawthorne Road. That's potentially a welcoming boulevard to get people back and forth from the campus environment out east and into the heart of East Gainesville. And I want us to think about the totality of South 4th Avenue as we go. And that's something that I'll bring lots more thought to when we have our MTPO workshop, our mobility workshop on October 26th. So when I say multidisciplinary, if I can say that, I want us to be thinking about it through MTPO and our mobility structure, as well as through the CRA, the GCRA. Because if we do it right, it's going to take lots and lots of good thinking and investment from various areas of city and county programming. So I want to make sure that that's sticking out in everybody's mind. I know that we're going to hire folks to help us sharpen our thinking on downtown, but there are some things downtown that are in the CRA area that may or may not be expensive to do that we all know need doing. And one of those is cleaning up and keeping it clean. Either through just basic upkeep of sidewalks and that sort of thing, or there are lots of ways we could go with that, but I would like to see us put a premium on simple things that we can do to make downtown hospitable, that we know we don't need to wait another year and a half to know about. We know that it needs some cleanup and that it needs daily attention to that sort of thing. And there used to be such a program. It's been a while, but there used to be such a program. It needs to be somebody's job when they wake up in the morning to make sure that when they wake up early in the morning, to have downtown Gainesville look sharp. That's not something we need somebody to tell us. So I hope that that's something we can move forward with. And we've had that discussion certainly in the past. It just never has gone anywhere. So we needed to go somewhere, I think. I know that part of the overall thinking of the CRA plan is food distribution and the whole food plan. And I want that to be there. There's a healthy market idea that's been floated that I would like to see us pursue as part of that. The idea of helping small grocers, small stores across the community in the CRA district even, make better use, healthier use of their store shelves. And there are lots of ways we could do that, lots of different iterations of a plan where we could help people make healthier use without losing money in the process. And I really, really hope that's going to be part of what we eventually hear back. And again, sooner rather than later would be great for that. And I know that's always the case. I know that you don't have the staff to do everything you need to do, but these are things that I think our community really is desirous of, and that we ought to be moving forward with as quickly as possible. And we ought to be including the county on some of this stuff too, because I think we're going to have some good partners available at the county to get some of this stuff done. A last thing that I will mention regarding the CRA, and I'm not going to be specific at all for obvious reasons, but there are areas of concern within the CRA district, individual lots and larger pieces of land that are problematic in their current iterations and ownerships that maybe we ought to be thinking about. And I don't want to be more specific than that because I don't want to see prices go through the roof. But there are pieces of land that perhaps the right entity to get them in better shape and to help their infrastructure move forward is the GCRA in the city of Gainesville. And I'll just leave it at that. And thank you for the program. As I said last week, I think it looks good. Excited to get moving forward on some of these projects. Loved hearing more about where we're going with 8th and Waldo. I've been super clear for a couple of years now that that's a big priority of mine. and of all of ours, I know. And I'm glad to hear that we've, we're working toward that. But all these other things are things that I hope we can get moving on to. I'm very pleased to hear the Welcome Back and All in the Family, the components of the INVEST program are at least partially possible through the GCRA. So thanks very much. I like what you're working on. Look forward to putting more of it on the ground. Thanks.
Commissioner, if I can just chime in on one piece that you did mention. So the GCRA is more of a project and less of a maintenance entity. So once a project is done, it falls on the obligation of the rest of the general government departments to maintain, and we're moving into that direction. Downtown is, while it's going to be a critical piece of the GCRA's plan on there, the responsibility is within other departments to maintain that. And for example, you'll see public works crews that were out there today fixing tree wells on Main Street. So we recognize we've got some work to do in that regard, and we will get it done.
All right, thank you. Back to Commissioner Simmons.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Ward, I agree with you regarding some of the lots that are not well kept, and maybe we need to look at acquisition. I think that's under our purview, and I think we need to really make that a priority. And as we look forward with East Gainesville, also, I wanted to update, just briefly let the commission know, as well as Sarah and the CRA staff that's on this call, that I've been working with healthcare professionals and different people for a number of months now. And we're looking at ways we can have healthcare services in East Gainesville. And so I want to just put that out on the table to let you know that I'm going to be coming back relatively soon with a report based on what our findings and what we've been working on, and hopefully solicit some support from the CRA. But I just want to make that known today that healthcare services or access to healthcare services in East Gainesville is critical. Especially during this COVID pandemic, we actually seen how the disparities has impacted our communities, our Black and Brown communities. And so I'm going to be coming back with some information and wanting to just let the CRA know that it will. I will be talking to you all as well as the commission. So I just wanted to bring that out. Also, Sarah, I sent you guys a email prior to the joint meeting regarding the opportunity zone example from Jacksonville. And I just wanted to know, how was that received? Is that something you can consider, something that you all talked about for a CRA standpoint? I just wanted to get that information out, because I feel like we're underutilizing our opportunity zone, which some of that is within the CRA district, I believe. And so I just wanted to highlight to the advisory board what other cities, particularly Jacksonville, what they have done in the opportunity zone, but just let you know that that's something I'm interested in looking at. And I just wanted to know, how was that perceived?
Good afternoon, it's Sarah. So we just were asked actually to distribute that to our advisory board. And so we did it before the meeting. We did not have an opportunity to discuss it yet at the meeting. So I have not received any formal feedback on that. But it was distributed.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
But at least you have it. And also, have you all been working on an incentive package to put that together as we start developing and looking at various programs or attracting different businesses to our location. Because I think we spoke about this earlier, but we haven't had very detailed conversations about incentives. And has that been something you all have been looking into, the advisory board has been talking about? Where are you on that? You on mute, Sarah.
Thank you. I need a t-shirt that says that. We have talked about that. It's in the plan. We've got to come back with some offerings and some, kind of strategic direction based on what we heard from the community through the planning process, but then also from you all and our board, and then get those approved. We have a lot of ideas right now, and our board's given us some really great ideas. So that is on the way. We are also hiring an economic development manager. It's posted right now. And we've been working with Lee and Caper to kind of figure out how our programs, since they're only available in the district, potentially could also spread to the rest of the city through Eric and Caper, outside of the district limits. And so we're kind of basically going to start working with Caper on this effort as well to make sure that the programs that we're drafting for our area could be used beyond maybe or maybe not. I know we have specific concerns on the eastern part of our district that we're trying to address as well.
But what I don't want to see is I don't want to see the outside of the city limits with this economic incentive plan. I don't want that to hinder what we're trying to do in East Gainesville. So I just want to make that a priority. And then in addition to that, maybe we can look at other economic incentives outside of the district. But what I'm really focused, I'm sorry.
I was just going to add to that if I could. So when we talk about, outside of the district, we still recognize that there's a portion of Eastside Gainesville East that is outside of the CRA boundaries, such as around Waldo and 39th, that would be prime for economic incentives that would come from non-CRA sources. So we want to make sure that when we design a program, we design a program that could also be applied outside the district boundaries, but still foster the same development benefits for the area.
Right, and I agree. I agree. So what I want to see is some economic incentives. Get some feedback on the opportunity zone and how we can put something together with that to coincide maybe with the CRA resources. But I would like to start looking at the opportunity zone, economic incentive packages, and healthcare related or access to healthcare related programs or activities within that area. So with that, I think that's it, Mayor. But if not, I'll raise my hand again.
Wow.
Thank you.
Okay, over to Commissioner Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. Really quickly, it's always helpful to hear the support from more than one commissioner. So I also want to let everybody know that Commissioner Ward's support, I'm in support of also the healthy markets. And I'm wondering how we would start to build that in or move forward on getting more information about how to execute that.
Well, don't we have that working group headed by Clarissa that's working on food related issues in general, food security?
Yes, sir. So the Food Desert Elimination Action Plan is one of the Commission's high priorities under the strategic plan.
Mm-hmm.
So we're putting together a plan for the Commission's consideration. I just want to make sure again that just because it's a priority doesn't mean that it can be done tomorrow. We're going to try to come back to the commission with a plan, get buy-in that these are the elements of the plan, and then to implement the plan moving forward. So the Healthy Shelves program is certainly something that needs to be out there and embedded, but we want to do this holistically in part of an entire effort with engagement as well.
So when you say as part of a holistic effort, as you know, what that translates to me is that that's going to take two years. I think no, okay.
No, we want to give you a plan with certain things that we and no pun intended on the food side, but the low-hanging fruit, the stuff that's a little bit higher for us to reach in the aspirational piece. So, but I think the commission needs to see how it's all going to fit together.
Okay, so we'll have a plan, but we can execute things sooner rather than later.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Simmons.
One quick thing in land acquisition, that was the other one I forgot to mention. Thanks.
Oh yeah, thank you. Commissioner Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to briefly point out that several of these things are things that we've been talking about as a commission for years already, and that's nobody's. I'm not hanging that on anybody as a problem. We've had a lot of turnover. We've had a lot of change, but I am very sensitive to things moving or not moving, because once we've already had something on the table for a couple of years, it gets a little wearisome, and new people roll into it and things change, and the people who have been working on it get redirected into other things. And I understand how all that happens and has happened, but from the perspective, from my perspective at least, and the perspective of most of the commission, these are mostly not new topics. And for the perspective of most staff, that they're not new topics. They just get shuffled up every now and then. So please don't hear this as Ward's angry. I'm not, but I do, feel a sense of urgency to get things accomplished on some of these items, like food. As Commissioner Johnson was talking, I hearkened back to a meeting that we had in early summer of 2018. So more than 2 years ago, when we really put food on the overall agenda. And I'll take responsibility for not having pushed harder on these things, but we got to start bringing some of them into port. So thank you.
And again, I'm just going to, with the commission's indulgence, keep trying to hammer this home. So you all adopted a strategic plan on August 6th. It's got top and high priorities. Food is one of the high priorities. Affordable housing is a top priority. The incentive plan for Gainesville East is a high priority. Downtown is a top priority. So these are all things that you said you want us to work on. And we have taken that to heart. In the commission action plan, we've assigned individuals and we've assigned deadlines to those. And we will be reporting back to the commission quarterly on our progress on all of these, so that you can be making sure that we're moving forward on them. And I certainly understand, not the non-anger, but maybe the frustration that certain things haven't moved forward. And having a plan and having priorities will allow us to put the focus on the stuff that you said is important. And we will move forward, on those and report and come back. And if we're not making the progress, let us know that, very bluntly that, you don't think we're making the progress that we need to be making on these items. We value that feedback, and that's why we will be back, reporting on these things every 90 days.
All right, thank you, Mr. Feldman. And I'm going to sort of build off that point. I know we all have an urgency behind certain things that either we individually believe are priorities or we as a commission have agreed on our priorities. People in our community have the same understanding of what's most important to them and what they'd like to see happen yesterday. I also want all of us to remind ourselves and locate our empathy for our staff. We have many, many people who are teaching their sons and daughters calculus, geography, literature, while they're trying to draft ordinances that can withstand court scrutiny down the road. We're not in normal times. And while I know we all feel the urgency to get so many of these things done expeditiously, the more we put pressure on our staff to get them done quickly, the more we risk losing them because they're going to have to choose between their family responsibilities and their professional responsibilities. We need to be very empathetic towards that. And so I believe it's fine for us to frequently remind staff of what we think should be happening and the fact that we think that should be happening more quickly than maybe it has in the past. That there are new things that are important, you know, and old things that you know have remained important. These are not normal circumstances, and I can tell you that many people who are trying to do this work for us, for our neighbors, are finding it very difficult, and still being the professionals they are, trying not to let that show, and you know, that's a big burden on me. It's a big burden on whether I can sleep at night or not. And so I know that the manager and directors and other charter officers have heard all of us clearly, and will continue to work hard to make these things happen, whether it's the you know, community engagement toolkit or projects within the GCRA or anything else that we hopefully approve later tonight. But there is a price too high to pay at times. And so we just need to be sensitive towards that. With that, Adam, hello. I don't know that we've met. It's good to have you with us. Appreciate your help. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you for any members of the public that wish to comment on anything dealing with the GCRA.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to the commissioners. We do have two callers on this topic. First, we have Mr. Scop, followed by Ms. Martinez. You can provide your comments in 3 minutes or less momentarily. The mic is now open.
Good afternoon, Yes, good afternoon, mayors, commissioners, Nathan Scop. So I want to support the continued efforts of the CRA. This community has many areas where the CRA can provide benefit, many areas of life that need to be redeveloped. So I'm supportive of that. You know, I think it's important for civic engagement for citizens such as myself and others to call and speak about expenditures of taxpayer money, up to and including the CRA. And when I just did that on the prior issue, and I want to point a privilege here, Mayor Poe, because I was attacked. But basically, you as a presiding officer of this meeting are supposed to enforce civility and treat members of the public with respect. And I made a comment regarding the expenditure of taxpayer money only to be lectured by Commissioner Sacco about privilege. I think that's inappropriate. Commissioner Sacco wants to make inappropriate comments and marginalize members of our community on the basis of their race and color of their skin. That's up to her, but I think it's racist and it's inappropriate. Okay? You want to engage in this divisive rhetoric that divides our community and label people and stereotype people. She has no knowledge of my upbringing. For the record,
My dad died when I was 13 years old. I put myself through school at my own expense, earned 3 degrees, and became very successful in life with hard work. You want to call that privilege? Be my guest. That's what hard work gets you, Commissioner Sacco. So I think you owe me an apology, and Mayor Poe, this is through the chair. I don't think it's appropriate to label people. I don't think it's appropriate to stereotype people based upon the color of their skin, their ethnicity, or any other things. So if you guys want to engage in reverse racism and start labeling people that question the expenditure of taxpayer money, then be my guest. But it reflects negatively on the commission and shows the contemptuous nature this commission has for anyone that doesn't agree with their point of view. But I think the comments made by the commission were completely inappropriate. And I think that the chair should express that concern, because the citizens
Mr. Scott, do you have any comments on the GCRA item?
To not fit like that. So that's my concern. But if y'all want to make racist comments, be my guest. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. I think next up we have Ms. Martinez, please.
Yes, thank you for taking my call. Regarding the suggestions about downtown, as a former downtown business owner, the problems that we've been having for decades is this commission and previous commissions have spent too much time supporting and advocating for businesses that primarily serve alcohol, activities that attract underage binge drinking. And it's those types of businesses that continue to leave problems like trash. And it's not so much just trash, but downtown business owners have had to deal with a lot more than just trash in their storefronts. People urinate, defecate, in their storefronts. And then you call a city manager, and this was when we had Wayne Bowers. He would recite the code ordinance, which we all had memorized. We didn't need the lecturing. The city manager would tell us, the business owners, that we need to clean up the condoms. We need to clean up the areas where people had defecated and urinated in front of our storefronts. So I just think if he supported more of a diversity of businesses downtown rather than just always focusing on alcohol establishments, that would help with some of the trash and, the urination and the other problems, drug paraphernalia and all of the other stuff that downtown business owners don't want to have to deal with. And the other thing that I wanted to mention also is the littering. The littering is not just a problem downtown, it's citywide. And that's something I feel like that you all could do public service announcements about. It's especially bad right on the street behind GHS, Northwest 16th Terrace. They throw dirty diapers out, they throw beer bottles out, fast food bags, McDonald's, etc. And face masks, they throw those around all over the place. So I think you all could help in ways of, getting people engaged in keeping our city clean and free of litter. But that's my suggestion for downtown. A little more diversity in the support that you give businesses. And then you won't have this continual problem of all the trash and, the sanitation, with urination and all the problems from the storefronts, drug paraphernalia, condoms, etc. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Martinez. We appreciate your comments. Mr. Mayor, that is all the comments we have on this topic. The floor is back to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Adam. Appreciate the discussion, everybody. I am relieved we're getting finished with our meeting a little bit early so we can get some sustenance in us. Just to remind the public, we will be coming back together this evening at 6 p.m. For final approval of a variety of budget documents for the coming fiscal year, which will start in just a few days, October 1st. So if you're interested in that, you can join us back here at 6 p.m. And with that, we are adjourned.